SW Media.
Everybody, welcome back. I'm happy to bring my friend back on. She is the executive director of Healthcare Voter and the founder of Healthcare Voices and a nationally known healthcare advocate. Please welcome Laura Packard. Hi, Laura.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Okay, so we have a problem. We don't have Roe anymore. We don't have the protections of Roe anymore. And so everyone's wondering, what are the things that Democrats can do now? What can't they do now? What should they do now? And I want to talk about a couple of those options because we'll get to the big picture in a minute because there's really only one answer. But as far as what Democrats can do now, I know Joe Biden just signed this executive order. I know the Department of Health and Human Services has said we will continue to do abortions. And the Pentagon has said we will continue to do abortions. And I just want to clarify to everybody what that means, right? It doesn't mean that you can just go get any old abortion at a military treatment facility or VA hospital or a federal hospital on federal land in a red state. What does that mean? We'll continue to do abortions.
Well, what they mean is to save the life of the mother or a pregnant person. And that is not black and white because how do you determine whether somebody's life is at risk? Because in medicine, there's lots of shades of gray. You know, you may be doing poorly. How poorly do you have to be doing before you then become eligible? And for example, in Dayton, Ohio, a woman was diagnosed with cancer. She cannot get chemotherapy because she's pregnant. So she has to go get an abortion, but you can't get an abortion in Ohio. So this woman just diagnosed with cancer has to travel to Indiana and, whatever backlog Indiana has, as long as Indiana can still perform abortions. So people are facing these issues with conditions that maybe are not going to kill them this minute. Or, if you have an ectopic pregnancy, it will kill you.
Yeah.
But is it going to kill you in the next 5 minutes? Or do they have to wait an hour or several hours for you to almost die? And in Ireland, a woman died of sepsis because they couldn't or wouldn't give her an abortion. That's part of what led to the outpouring of support to finally reform Ireland's abortion laws. Because again, medicine is not black or white. For making these decisions, and doctors are scared they're going to be sued or that they're going to go to jail if they make a call in the patient's best interest that some lawyer or some Yahoo disagrees with.
Yeah, and let me throw another wrench into the works because abortion saved my life. Not because I was medically in danger, but mental health. I aborted a rapist's baby. And had I been forced to carry that pregnancy to term or raise a rapist's baby, I would probably not be here because of the trauma of the rape. And then you add that trauma and it's just compounding. But, where is that line? You can't just say, if I don't get an abortion, I'm going to kill myself. Is then the life of the mother at risk? It's so... This is why we shouldn't even have to parse this shit out, honestly.
Right. I mean, abortion is healthcare. There is no difference between a physical abortion for a wanted pregnancy and an unwanted pregnancy. This is all just legal BS.
Morale laws, right?
And it makes people maybe feel better. I mean, there are plenty of people that are anti-abortion that would say, well, my abortion was okay. But I mean, it's all the same. It's all, you take the same pills or you have the same DNC medical procedure. There is no difference. There is no good abortion or bad abortion. There is just abortion.
Yeah, agreed. Now, a lot of folks are calling on Dems to declare a public health emergency. And at first, they had said they thought about it. The White House thought about it. The administration thought about it, and they opted against it for a couple of reasons. There would be a lot of lawsuits, and they only had a couple of $10,000 in this fund. And there really isn't much more legally they could do that can't already be done by HHS and, the CDC, et cetera, FDA. So my whole thought was just fucking declare the public health emergency. Just do it. Like, deal with the lawsuits, even though it's not going to get much done. Though I am afraid that they could declare the public health emergency, not be able to get much done, and then be in trouble for not being able to get much else done for having declared it. What are your thoughts on the kinds of other things that haven't quite been done yet, but still could be done, but are really just political performance because it's not going to cure our ills. It might put little Band-Aids here and there. Do you know what I mean?
Well, I think under the Trump administration, they had absolutely no problem with doing political theater, writing executive orders that did nothing and, attempting to do things that were not going to fly. And I think the Trump administration, the base supported the Trump administration for that because it looked like they were fighting. And right now it needs to look like Biden and the Democrats are fighting. Even if it doesn't result in a win, we need to look like we are taking this seriously and that losing Roe versus Wade is not just an opportunity to text you for more money, but to do something. And we're realists. We recognize that what they do is going to be minimal and is not going to have much of an effect, but they need to at least look like they're fighting. They want to inspire people like you and me and the thousands of people listening to this to, be enthusiastic and volunteer this fall.
Right. Because, we could sit around and have explainers and pamphlets about how declaring a public health emergency wouldn't really move the needle. Or you could just fucking do it and take the lawsuit up to the Supreme Court and then have everybody mad at the Supreme Court for not allowing your executive order to go through. There is another, kind of a back burner idea where everyone's like, look, we wanted to take executive power away from the president more. That's why, we didn't want that Trump. Why would we do it now? It's like, well, this is, we're at fucking DEFCON 1 here with not just Roe v. Wade and our rights to privacy, but with democracy in general. So I'm for just doing it. And if you lose in court and the Supreme Court kicks it down, their approval rating will fall and the Republicans will be in more trouble instead of having, get on the offense and don't be back on your heels. And so finally that leads me to, okay, so we codify Roe. Let's say we get Murkowski or, brow furrowing Susan Collins to carve out the filibuster because it's fucking Susan Collins' fault. We're in this mess in the first place. But let's say we get them to carve out the filibuster to codify Roe. It's going to be immediately challenged in court. It will have a stay put on it so it can't be enforced. It'll go up to the Supreme Court and they'll just fucking gut it, just like they would a voting rights bill or anything else we put together. I mean, if the 2013 court gutted voting rights, what do you think this court is going to do to it? And we just got a decision all explained to us by Judge Alito why they hate Roe and why it doesn't exist because it's not in the original text of the Constitution. Do you think they're going to let this law stand? There's no way they would. So the solution is
we need to expand the court. But there's two pieces. I mean, first we need to amend or eliminate the filibuster because right now we can't get to 50 votes on anything until we fix the filibuster. And second, we need to expand the court. So what we need is for the Senate to do these things. There are not the votes in the Senate today, honestly. So what we need are more and better progressive senators. And so if you live in a state right now that hasn't had their primary yet, like perhaps you live in Wisconsin, you should be listening to the candidates that are running. You should be asking them these questions. Do they support amending the filibuster? If so, how? Do they support expanding the court, or how are they going to fix the Supreme Court? And get them on record now while they're candidates, because as we can see now, it's a lot harder to move people once they're elected. When they're still trying to get your vote, it's easier. So if you have a primary, get them on the record on these things. Make sure they know that this is what their Democratic supporters want. And next, we need to get them elected in November because right now the House can pass the bills all day long and then they will just die in the Senate.
Yeah. And I will say this, push in the primaries, push. Make sure that the candidate that you tell him, hey, you'll get my vote if for expanding the court and carving out a filibuster to do so, or just killing it altogether. But at least carving out a filibuster to expand the court. That's like number most important thing. And then, pass voting rights and codify Roe, and it will go to a court that won't gut it. But it's very important to remember, even if the Democrat that isn't for expanding the court wins the primary, you still need to vote for that Democrat because you can push a Democrat. They're harder to push once they're in office, but I guarantee you they're easier to push than a Republican senator. You won't even have a fucking seat at the table. There won't be a table if the Republican wins. And we have shown, I think, pretty effectively that public pressure works. We're about to probably see a public health emergency declared, even though it's kind of useless, at least, practically, not politically. Politically, it's a good card to play. And that's because of public pressure, right? That we're like, no, fucking do this. And then they do it. You can push a Democrat. You can push a moderate Democrat. You cannot push a Republican. So I think we fixed it. We've solved it, Laura. Push your primary candidates to expand the court. If one that you won't expand the court or kill the filibuster doesn't win, still vote for that Democrat and then push that Democrat after they're in office. Does that sound about the best thing we can do right now?
Absolutely. And you can see the frustration in the Senate. Like the Senate was never this close to amending the filibuster. And you can see them get there as more senators see, the total failure of the institution. For example, I'm here in Colorado, and Senator Bennett has not been supportive of a lot of these changes. But, they're inching along. A lot of them not Manchin and Sinema on this issue, unfortunately, yet. But the rest of them, they're being moved along they're getting radicalized by the situation, as we all have been. So it's important to make sure that there is somebody in office that you can work with, even if they're not all the way there yet, because Susan Collins is never going to get there probably. But if Maine had voted differently, we would be in a different situation right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And there are some that you can't push. And we've learned that, and we have to make them irrelevant. And the only way to do that is to put more Dems in Congress that are pushable, at least. And again, they're more pushable than a Republican. Tell everyone where they can get information with Healthcare Voter and Healthcare Voices and what those organizations do.
Absolutely. Well, you can find me on Twitter at @Packard. I'm also on Instagram, Facebook at Laura Packard Activist. You can find Healthcare Voter and Healthcare Voices on all of the social media platforms. And be sure to watch my show on Mondays, listen to my podcast on Tuesdays called Care Talk, where we talk about healthcare issues and we answer your questions. Experts will take on your concerns and get you good answers.
That's the best part of Care Talk, is the interactive nature of it. I absolutely love it. Everybody check it out. I appreciate your time today. We will talk again soon, my friend, as the midterms approach. Thank you very much, Laura Packard.
Thank you.
MSW Media.